Hello everyone, we are doing some speed painting today. So this is a very big canvas and I'm working on 4 sections as you can see, but we're just kind of zoom in on this one here. I'm making paintings for a craft show that was coming up that weekend, and these are going to be finished with a twine border. I found some inspiration on Pinterest and I really liked it when I was looking for painting inspo because I haven't painted in a while, so this was a good way to practice and get some creative energy out. I haven't painted in a while. This is all acrylics, and you can see I'm blending with a lot of whites and stuff because I want to work like oils, but I'm too impatient for oils. So acrylic is the way that I go because I want to work fast. But this is, just some fun stuff that I was working on, so enjoy! Oh, welcome back everyone. So after that quick break, I wanted to start painting on the front landscape. So we're going to start on the bottom and we're just going to get right in on that. So this one ended up being kind of like a field slash little creek thing. You can really see me start to channel my inner Bob Ross with all the painting methods, with the brush strokes and everything. So just kind of think of this as a subtle kind of no narration, but I might narrate at some points, Bob Ross video. So the painting and the water down here really turned out better than I thought it was going to, especially with the reflection of the sky. It was the first time I tried something like that. When it came to the clouds, I don't know what was going on with me, but clouds, you'll notice, have been a really difficult thing for me to grasp. I love them and all I want to do is paint them, but the colors, especially when it's like at sunset, and you know they always look so pretty when you go outside, but capturing that with paints when you're not as experienced as other master painters does take practice. So I definitely take these as practice runs. I do think they turned out pretty good for my skill level, but you guys can let me know if you want to leave me some tips on how to make clouds really well. I would love them down in the comments below. Yeah, but you can see I'm just putting in a little sunshine there. I did decide to put suns in for some of these, not all of them, but some of them felt like they needed a little focal point. I really love this part right here because you can start seeing this foliage really come to life. I love working from darks to lights because once you start putting on that light layer, it just creates such a 3D effect that makes you want to just live in the painting, which I did after this. This was one of my favorite ones, I think, in the group, other than maybe the one right above it, because the sky in that one just, I love that one so much. You'll start to see with this second painting that I don't know what I'm doing for this one. I didn't really have a plan going in. The clouds turned out better than I expected, and then I had to make a foreground that didn't drown out those clouds because I thought they were so cute. This is my least favorite painting out of the four of them. One person really liked it because all the paintings were purchased, but it just wasn't going the way that my brain initially planned for it to go. It's interesting to see my process in trying to fix it along the way. I already realized at this point that it wasn't going where I wanted, and I was trying to fix it up with some white, you know, try to make it look more like the beach with the waves, but I don't know how to make waves, so I just kept adding, and I was like, just trust the process, trust the process. And it wasn't processing out. The perspective looked really flat. I was trying to do my color thing, but I didn't want it to be mossy because it's a beach. So I like wanted it to be hilly, or maybe with like grass or tall grass or something. It just wasn't happening. Nothing was really working out in my thought process. So this is the point where I was really starting to give up on this perspective because it looked so flat. And so I actually asked my dad, because he was around, to ask him like, what from an outside perspective was I missing? And he's like, you're just missing some depth. He was comparing it to the painting right next to it, where it had a lot of those deep colors and the reflection of the sky and everything that was really working for it from background to foreground. And I just had to repeat that process. And I think that kind of set my brain off in the right direction of what I needed. I'm still not the happiest with how it turned out, but I definitely took that initiative to take a direction for like where the light was hitting, where to put my shadow, like go back into the water to create that depth in the waves with a little more consciousness of where I'm going instead of just splotching paint anywhere, which is where I was ending up because I was getting so frustrated with this painting. I do think I might have to practice more with water, as much as I hate it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, if you guys have any tips for painting water and beaches and things like that, especially midday, like when there's not a clear direction of sunlight or shading. I think that's where my brain is really struggling. I love how you can see at this point where I kind of lock in. You can see my hair as I get close to the painting and be like, okay, we're gonna make perspective. If it's not gonna show up on its own, I'm gonna force this perspective as much as I can. So I went in with a bunch of light and then some dark pieces to give those shadows, and then started with light again to just really start accentuating highlights and lowlights, because if I didn't, this was going to be a very, very flat painting. And we are going to go on to the next ones because I was so frustrated and so done with that beach painting that I was ready to move on. So here is our next one, which I was doing a lot of straight lines coming towards you that I wanted to do at least one that was different, with kind of a hill going the opposite kind of direction composition wise. And I was going to put a little more sunshine in the corner there and accentuate that like really intense sunset that you can sometimes capture. You can see me going back at it again with these clouds. I really wanted to try and capture those really, like that colorful purple pink cloud with the yellow highlights that you can see at sunset. I'm not entirely sure where I was starting with these, but again, I just needed to trust the process because this was a rough start for sure, but I add white to everything and it makes it a little bit better, little bits at a time. Also, if anyone is wondering what the thought process is, there is none. I don't really have a thought process going into these. I just go, hey look, there's yellow from the sun, so maybe that'll reflect off the clouds, so let me start from the bottom of the clouds, which I wouldn't recommend. I'd probably recommend starting at the top of the clouds maybe, but I could be wrong. Don't ask me for advice. I just wanted them to look pretty, so I just kept adding the colors that I wanted and blending them together. I do think a habit that I have personally is over blending. I don't allow shades and values to kind of exist with stark contrast. It looks odd to me, so I always want to blur it together with either white or blend it with a mutual color, and it does end up making my stuff look a little bit muddy, so I am working on that. And I think by the end of my processes, you can see as I start to lean up, but I do waste a lot of time in paint blending and then erasing and then reblending and reblending and painting back over. But I do think these clouds turned out really nice in the end, but I don't know what I did. I just kept throwing paint at it in different brush strokes until it worked. Which I think is a good reason why I started to document this process, because if I don't watch myself find the right way that I paint for my style, then I don't think I'm ever going to go anywhere with it. But I've got grass down, in my opinion, for what I make. I love doing the darks and lights. And I took a quick break because out of the corner of my eye I was like, oh, the sun should go there. That's where I want the sun to go. So I had to put it there before I forgot about it. So after painting that grass, I was like, oh, a little tree would look so cute up in this corner, and I really started to feel like Bob Ross here, because it's just like painting the happy tree on the happy hill. But you'll see this is kind of where the ideas and color palettes for these two top paintings really started to blend together, which I honestly really liked because it made the pieces flow as a set. I love the idea of all of these pieces were made on the same piece of paper, which kind of makes them siblings. So thankfully 3 of them did go to the same person, but the one actually, I believe with the tree, sold to one completely separate person. So now they're a separated family, but at least 3 of them are together. Also, this top painting reflects the painting below it because there's just that little path, just like the bottom one has that little waterway. I was like, this one I think should be a little dirt path, kind of reflecting like the browns of the tree that are going to be implemented on the other painting. And again, just channeling that inner Bob Ross like happy little tree and the happy grass. Trying to remember all those episodes that I used to watch with my mom at night, thinking of like how to layer the paints. Even though he used oil, acrylic, at least in my brain, paint will work the same. If you try hard enough and if you're stubborn enough, I will get those yellows and purples to reflect in that grass and it'll be beautiful. To which, in my opinion, I think a lot of them did, but you guys let me know. Yeah, so for that grass and for that tree, it's just dabbling on that yellow green color mixture on top of the green. It just, oh, the satisfaction that I get from doing that and seeing that depth just kind of pop off the page. Even though it's not a whole lot of detail, it's one of my favorite forms of art style, is just blotching that paint on. So after I created that depth, I was like, I love the greens, but it needs a little bit of color if I want it to be that fantasy flower feel. So this is when I started dabbling in just tiny bits of different colored paints to do like bushels of flowers far off. And I also, once I got the colors that I wanted here, started doing that on the bottom. And you'll see me going in, see all 4 paintings and kind of their cohesiveness in style and in form, except for the beach one. The beach one's the only one kind of out of place. And I try to doctor that up, but for this one I start to get a little larger with the flowers as I get closer, with a little bit more detail because I noticed that lacking at the top too. So I thought I'd try it out. I messed up a few times and I had to fix it, but I still think it turned out decent. Oh boy, here I go trying to fix that painting. So, I don't know if flowers actually grow in the grass on beachfronts, but I was like, the rest of them have flowers, so I kind of want this one to have flowers. So I started to give it flowers. I don't know what kind of flowers they are. Maybe they're lilies, maybe they're a form of daffodil. I'm not entirely sure, but I just couldn't leave it blank. But anyways, here's how they all turned out. Here's a quick little close-up of each of them. Very, very pretty nonetheless. A little better when you see them flat. So the next part I needed sticks, and I didn't have any. So I went out on a walk with my dogs and grabbed some. And then we'll start making the frames. So I started out by measuring out different twigs and sticks, one to see that the size looked good and that I could get a long enough length. I first tried cutting it with scissors. As you can see, that did not quite work out. So I went into my jewelry bin and I got a pair of wire clippers, and these did work really great, but there was one problem. Yeah, they just kind of launched if you cut them without holding both ends. But it's okay because it got them cut. And as long as you weren't standing across from me, you were safe. Okay, so I started to measure them out. I just kind of measured based off of the other stick. I didn't learn my lesson. That one is just gone. It just launches off into the ether. I don't know where it goes. So I got one twig for each corner. And after I had those, I just needed to trim the paper a little bit so you didn't see any white, or like not a whole lot of white so you don't see the messy edges. And then I just started to glue them down. I used E6000 glue just because I didn't want the pieces melting out in the sun if I was selling them at an outdoor show. Hot glue can melt, not saying it would for paper. I also didn't like how stringy hot glue can get or how chunky it can be. So I thought a little dab of E6000 that I trust to make a lot of other things should do the trick, especially after it's fully cured. and it takes forever to dry, so I kind of cut the pieces out where I'm just sitting there waiting for this to dry. But yeah, I started to put those together. So after a few minutes, I had my neighbor come over and my parents all went outside, and it was so beautiful out there, so I was like, why not? I'll go outside. I meant to paint outside, but it was very humid that morning. So this is now by like mid-afternoon that I'm getting around to this. So you'll see like the table shaking and my dog walking by underneath the table. But you know, it was very nice to just sit and chat while I was doing it instead of sitting listening to music by myself. And after painting so many beautiful outdoor pieces, it was nice to get some fresh air. Please, if you have the chance, go outside, go for a walk, and embrace the nature that you might admire these paintings so much for. Also, I just realized I was trying to figure out why my hands look so strange in this video, and I realized it's because I'm not wearing any jewelry. I normally am wearing many rings or bracelets or something, especially on my arms and hands, so I don't think you needed to know that, but I thought I'd mention it just because. So I don't know if it's because this process took so long, or maybe it was the conversation that was happening, but I didn't realize my leg really shook so much until watching this video back. Because, I mean, look at that. Oh my gosh. And I just stopped. So I don't know what I was thinking about, I don't know what I was doing. Just gluing and listening to conversation, I guess. But yeah, and if you see my head peeking over, I was just trying to make sure that you weren't seeing any white pieces behind the sticks, so that way everything just looked very cohesive and put together. Oh, and the one thing that I do wish I had for this piece, as I was putting it together, the twigs worked for the other ones I think really well because they're more forest and or what's it called? Field flower based versus this one, which is definitely more beach. You can see like the little birds that I decided to add to it to make it a little more lively. I wish I had driftwood. If I got some driftwood maybe for the beach painting, I think it would look even better. It still looks good with the normal wood, but I think a driftwood would add an extra touch. Or maybe seashells. I didn't think about that. Maybe for another beach painting I'll add seashells to the edges. And the last and final part here was going to be the twine. This was just not too bad of a process, quicker than the sticks on the sides, but I was so ready to be done at this point after painting them and cutting them, and gluing them, and then wrapping them all in one day in kind of a panic because my show that I was going to sell them at was the next day. I was getting a little stressed at this point because I had other things that I had to do as well. But it was going pretty well, and wrapping them was really easy. I put a little bit of glue when applying it, and then I would wrap it around a few times, wrap it around both twigs in a different way to make sure it's secure, and then clip it and glue it. There were some pieces that when I went to go glue them, because I was impatient, I did not wait long enough for the glue to fully cure before adding the twine, but that was okay because I was able to add a little extra glue if the twigs were popping off, and then I would use the twine to really hold those twigs together so they wouldn't come off later on. You can see me doing that process here, adding a little extra glue and then using that twine to really secure those twigs together. Ta-da! So these are the final products with a little bit of twine attached so that you're able to be hung up, but also able to be untied if people don't want to have the twine on there. All of these paintings sold first day out in the market, which I was really happy about, but let me know if you like these and what other compositions you'd like to see.